Welcome back to the DFS Army Week 4 Waiver Wire Companion Podcast. And for those of you, notice I'm not with my broadcasting partner today, Shane Seeley. It's my fault. I had to do it earlier. Shane is at his job working for the man, so we miss you, Shane. And what I'm going to do today is in the DFS Army Slack chat, I posted up my waiver wire suggestions. Now, these are mostly for 12 and 14 teams. If you're in a 10-team league or if you're in a smaller league than that, chances are there's even better players on the waiver wire for you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run them down. You can, this is meant to be listened to or watched as you're reading down the list. And if there's anyone that I forgot, tweet at me. I can give you my suggestions on them. DJ Shark, wide receiver, Jacksonville Jaguars. He did it again. If for some reason he should not be on your waiver wire at this point, in the leagues where you lost Antonio Brown, great pickup right there. If you're hurting at receiver, he has been a top 12 receiver, and I just don't see any reason why he won't finish in the top 24. In the preseason, when the Geek and I did our waiver wire podcast, we had as one of our bold calls as a top 36 receiver. Now, you never know. Receivers are going to have volatile weeks, but I would definitely get aggressive on DJ Shark. Use a number one priority on him. I have in the suggestion 20 to 35%, but if you're desperate at receiver, you can push the chips in. He looks legitimate to me. Saquon Barkley went down this weekend, so Wayne Gallman, who's kind of just a guy, is my top running back pickup of the week. I have in the sheet that he should be around a 15 to 50% pickup, and let me explain. If it's just adding depth, if you're not the Barkley owner and you already have two running backs that you like, a third that's like a Duke Johnson type, adding Wayne Gallman, it shouldn't be a priority ad. But you never know. I mean, the Giants offense all of a sudden has come alive with Hall of Famer Daniel Jones at the helm. In the preseason, again, we were high on Daniel Jones just because it wasn't Eli and he's mobile. And that could add a spark to the offense. Barkley, by all accounts, is going to be out for 2 months. So he's not a drop. He's a hold. I have him in a very important league where I picked first. And my second pick was Antonio Brown on the turn. So somehow I'm holding on. But Wayne Gallman, don't be afraid to go expensive on him. But you could also just put a few bucks on him, 15% or so, if he's just depth. Normally, there wouldn't be such a wide range for bidding, but it really has to do with your specific situation. Number 3 on my list is Rex Burkhead. He, again, it's Patriot games with the running backs, but go 15, 20%, get him. He probably was picked up a couple weeks ago. He's going to be involved while healthy. So if he's still out there for some reason, go get him. Darrell Williams, my running back, my fourth player and my running back. He had a role, and right now he is certainly ahead of Darwin Thompson. He's worth about a 7 to 16% bid. If you need a running back, Shady, it was, he made it through and he had a good fantasy day, but he's older, he's dinged up. I wouldn't count on him. I think that Williams is a shrewd pickup. There might be a bidding war for him, but I wouldn't go much higher just because you just don't know week to week what's going to be there. Staying with the running backs, Alexander Mattinson. Now, I think this is the sneaky pickup of the week if he's not already on a roster. I've been rostering him in a couple leagues just because you want those high upside backs that if something happens to the starter that you have maybe a top 15 running back. Mattinson certainly looks the part. Alexander Madison, I have a suggested bid of 8 to 19% of your budget. You're going to have to hold him, and the bye weeks are coming. But if Dalvin Cook goes down, you're in good shape there. The next player on the list is Philip Dorsett. Philip Dorsett, some people call him. I call him Dorsett. Now, he was a first-round pick, Philip Dorsett, and I have him here as a 4 to 8% guy, but you might have to get actually a little more aggressive with Philip Dorsett. Julian Edelman was banged up a little bit in this game. I think he's going to play next week from the early reports I read. Antonio Brown is out of here, so he's going to be involved. I mean, he is going to be the outside big play receiver. I like him a lot. I'm going to need to play him in a couple leagues where I was able to pick him up last week, but I foolishly didn't pick him up in a couple important spots. So if he's out there, and again, it's all relative to your league. I get a lot of questions with who should I drop? Should I drop TJ Hawkinson for him? I mean, if you need a receiver, sure. If you're that great at tight end, which nobody is, then don't. I don't see how most teams suck at tight end. So I don't see how you can drop someone like Hawkinson. Okay, moving along. Dorsett would be I have him here as a 4 to 8% guy, but coming to think about it now, I would go into the 20s. That was probably a mistake. I'll have to fix that on the sheet if you really need a receiver. Paris Campbell, he hasn't done much yet. T.Y. Hilton was banged up a little bit. We'll see as the week goes on. I still think that he's a good pickup. I think you can get him in the 5 to 10% range. It's trying to get these guys before they have those big weeks, so you don't have to blow your whole budget on them. And I still think Paris Campbell's in that zone where you can get him reasonably priced. It may not be so in a couple weeks. Moving along, Ronald Jones. Ronald Jones was likely dropped in your league after a couple of bad weeks, but he looked great. I've held on to him where I could in a couple spots. I had to cut him. I was high on him. If you've listened to the podcast in the offseason, you know I was high on Ronald Jones. So far, I've been wrong, but he did look the part yesterday. He lit it up. I'm picking him back up if you need a running back. He should be a high priority add, but I wouldn't break the bank for him. I would say you could probably get him in the 15% range. If you need a running back, always feel free. And because you know the seasoning of your league, you know the specific nuances. You know if people are aggressive bidders. You know if they're cheap chicken littles and they don't like to spend their money and they want to always save their money. I'm not a big believer in saving money. I think you go get the guy because the fab becomes less and less valuable as the season moves on. So I would get aggressive with the guys you need that you really feel like you can get a bunch of games out of. All right, Deontay Johnson is my next player. We're about halfway through at this point. Deontay Johnson is the rookie wide receiver that started as they benched Moncrief, who has just been terrible. People thought James Washington was going to have a good week this week. It looks like Deontay Johnson was the priority receiver after Juju Smith-Schuster. So I like Deontay Johnson. He may fly under the radar. I know he'll be on a lot of waiver pickup lists. So your league mates who read ESPN and CBS and Yahoo. So those guys, they'll be on there, but they may just pass over because they may not know his name. Your sharper fantasy football players are certainly be on him. I just by total luck picked him up in a league where I had to cut AB. I was on AB everywhere this year, and foolish me. But I think that in some sharp leagues they'll be aggressive. You could still probably get Deontay Johnson. I have here 8 to 11%, but you might be able to get him for $5 or less in your. Put the bid out. $8 or 8%. I think that's a reasonable bid. One of my favorite preseason players was rookie Dawson Knox, and tight ends typically, this is a great year for tight ends. Did anybody see the game yesterday where Dawson Knox looked like Jeremy Shockey in his rookie year, and he barreled over that guy and he took on another hit, and he just looks like a beast out there. And Buffalo, they have pass catchers like John Brown and Zay Jones that go down the field, but no one really work in the middle of the field. Dawson Knox looks like the real deal, and in a year where tight end is just it's just a chasm of garbage. It's really nice to be able to get a guy that you think on any given week can blow up. Now, listen, he's a rookie tight end. He's going to have bad weeks. If you have the space on your roster, I like the stash. Maybe I'm trying to think, maybe you had OJ Howard and you've been disappointed. You had Hunter Henry and you've just been flipping through the scrap heap. This is another player that could possibly be useful for you. Now, I have Will Dissly lower on the list. Let me see if I have him on this list here. I don't have him on the list because I had him on last week, but I would prioritize Will Dissly over Knox only because he's done it a couple weeks in a row. He's not a rookie. So both of those guys, depending on your need for tight end, I have in the 5 to 9% range. But if you're like me and desperate at tight end in a lot of leagues, you need to go get Will Dissly and Knox. I think that you can't expect them to have great weeks every week, but Dissly certainly looks like he's going to be involved in the passing game. Last year, he did this before he got hurt. He would show up, he would disappear. So both of those guys. Add Will Dissly to your list. All right, getting to the bottom half of the list here. Now, I have the QBs listed next. The QBs, Daniel Jones. In a 1 QB league, sure, you could put a bid on him. I have 10 to 20%. I wouldn't just go add him if you already have a good QB. If you have a good QB, a couple bucks just to keep everyone honest is fine. But if you're one of these teams that just lost Drew Brees and you picked up Teddy Bridgewater, I would drop Teddy Bridgewater and do what it takes to get Daniel Jones. He looked mobile. He looked like he was making good decisions. He's got good weaponry, and then he's got Golden Tate coming back. I know Barkley being out is a bummer, but this might be even better for Daniel Jones. I like the pickup in Superflex. I mean, you push all your chips in. You, for some reason, if you're in a Superflex league and Daniel Jones is out there, say it's a 10-team league, and there are from time to time, if you're the Eli owner and you didn't pick up Daniel Jones, you're late to the party. But in a Superflex league, I would use all of my fab or whatever I needed to do to get it. In 1 QB leagues, if you need some depth in Dynasty, there's no way he's out there in Dynasty, but you got to, he's going to be probably, I would say if I was going to make a projection for Daniel Jones, I would say QB 15 going forward, and with a couple top 12 weeks sprinkled in. I mean, you saw the upside. You saw what he did yesterday. He was a top 2 or 3 QB. I mean, he scored 40 fantasy points for you. So the upside is certainly there. He had already revealed itself. Now, Gardner Minshew and Kyle Allen. Again, I think the same principles apply for Minshew. He's going to be there at least through week 11. And the good news for the Jags is they'll know right away it'll be obvious what they need to do. If Minshew plays how he's been playing, they're just going to keep him in there. There's no way they're going to go back to Foles. Now, if it's kind of up and down, then they'll probably go back to Foles and just know that they have a really good quarterback moving forward. So he was probably again picked up. Minshew mania is everywhere. So just even in leagues where people didn't need him, they were picking him up. But he's a good pickup, good player. I like what I saw. I live out in Jacksonville right now, so I'm pretty happy. Down here, people are going berserk from him. Everyone's walking around with those dopey mustaches and working out naked and doing whatever else that he does. So I don't know if you heard about that. Some sort of porn company offered him money to represent them, obviously with the mustache and the working out naked and all that stuff. But man, Minshew mania is in full effect. That might be worth an extra bid just right there. All right, moving along. Same thing with Kyle Allen. It's only going to be a short-term fix. I have 5 to 18%, depending on how desperate you are at QB. Jeff Wilson of the 49ers, running back. I mean, he's the goal line back in San Francisco. Now, they're going on a bye this week, San Francisco, and Tevin Coleman's probably coming back in the next couple weeks. So I think you can get, I'm almost positive you can get him for a few dollars. Now, you're going to have to hold him through the week 4 bye, which is painful if you need to make pickups. So if you have the room on your bench and you want to make a speculative ad on the San Francisco goal line back, Jeff Wilson, he's a decent ad. I've had to add him in a couple spots where I've been decimated at running back. So I'm totally comfortable with that. Now, keep in mind that 49ers, people didn't expect them to be a good team because they've been so bad, but Jimmy G, I mean, he's 9-2 under Kyle Shanahan now. I mean, the only 2 losses that Jimmy Garoppolo had were Kansas City on the road and Minnesota on the road in the game, in the 11 games he's played for the Kyle Shanahan 49ers. So this team is looking like a legitimate, possibly winner of that division, certainly a playoff team. And you want to get as many pieces of it as possible. It will, again, Jeff Wilson, a pretty decent ad. Jacoby Myers, worth a stash if you have space. Julian Edelman, again, if he's out, I don't think he's going to be. I think he's going to play. So, 3 wide receiver sets are going to be Edelman, Josh Gordon, and our guy, Philip Dorsett. And so Jacoby, is he worth, if you have space, a buck, why not? Same thing for Deion Kane. If T.Y. Hilton doesn't play, I think he's worth a $1 bid. Darius Slayton, the rookie on the Giants. Did anyone see him play? He looked really good yesterday. He was somebody I was trying to pick up in a lot of dynasty leagues. Then he got hurt. Didn't have a lot of room for him. I know I stupidly cut him in a lot of places. But with Golden Tate coming back, who knows? I mean, the Giants don't really have a field stretcher. So if you have space, I mean, a lot of leagues are only 5 or 6 bench spots, maybe 7 at most. It's hard to stash all these guys. It's pretty cheap advice to say stash him. Stash everybody, right? If you have room, Slayton, if you're in a dynasty league and he wasn't picked up, absolutely pick him up right away. Darius Slayton looking like a good play for the Giants. For you tight end streamers that are just every week you put someone and you pick the wrong guy, Chris Herndon will be coming back week 6. It might be time to pick him up. If you can get him for a couple bucks, you're going to have to sit through the Jets bye in week 4, and then you're going to have to he won't be. He's suspended one more game in week 5. So in week 6, it'll be his first week back. But I think Chris Herndon's going to be playable right away when he comes back. So if Chris Herndon's out there and you're desperate at receiver, a tight end, this is a good time to pick him up. And lastly, for you tight enders who you're just like going through the garbage heap, the dumpster, like on the bottom of the dumpster, like where all the garbage juice is. I mean, it is really ugly at tight end this year. And James O'Shaughnessy has been, he has a pulse in Jacksonville, and he's gotten you some points every week. There's a couple leagues I'm in where I've literally taken zeros at tight end. It's just been awful. No matter who I've picked, it just hasn't worked out. And James O'Shaughnessy will be a target for me there for a couple bucks. Maybe, you should be able to get him everywhere. He's probably available in 90+% of leagues. So if you're just totally desperate and you just need somebody, you've gone Tyler Eifert in the wrong week, or you just cycled through, I certainly endorse him. This was a quick podcast to be accompanied with the waiver wire sheet that I put out. If I missed your favorite player, just let me know. Or if you think I missed somebody that I should be talking about, and I could certainly talk about that player in the Slack chat. But for now, I'll be back tomorrow with the Geek. We'll be going over the Vegas lines. All right, everybody. Peace and love.